Welcome to the Taiwan language episode, a podcast for learning and insights in Mandarin and Taiwanese. I'm your host, Yasmin. In the last episode, we talked about the Qing dynasty government's attitude toward opium. At first, they allowed opium imports, but then, due to foreign influence and financial pressure, the country's opium problem worsened, greatly affecting people's lives and national security. Then, in 1895, as a result of the Treaty of Shimonoseki, the Qing government ceded Taiwan to Japan. So, over the next 50 years, Taiwan entered the Japanese colonial period. The question now is, how will the Japanese handle this difficult issue after taking over Taiwan? Will they ban it completely or adopt other strategies? Today, let's dive into the story of opium in Taiwan under Japanese rule. At that time, Japan was a modernized country compared to Taiwan, more advanced in medicine and scientific knowledge. So when Japan successfully took over Taiwan after defeating the Qing dynasty in the First Sino-Japanese War, they viewed three major Taiwanese customs: men wearing braids, opium smoking, and foot binding for women as uncivilized practices. However, these customs were considered part of traditional culture by the Taiwanese. Upon taking control of Taiwan, the Japanese government actively addressed the opium issue. First, they established strict regulations prohibiting Japanese citizens from smoking opium to prevent its harmful effect on the Japanese population. They also made it clear that any Taiwanese person caught selling opium to Japanese citizens would face the death penalty. But how did the Japanese handle the issue of Taiwanese people smoking opium? In addition to banning opium imports, in the early days of their rule over Taiwan, the Japanese government established government-controlled opium stores to regulate opium sales. This aimed to gradually reduce the number of people smoking opium, with the ultimate goal of completely eradicating it. They also deployed the police to crack down on illegal opium sales and use to strengthen their control. Furthermore, they included the harmful effect of opium in school textbooks to educate students about its dangers. In the 5th year of Japanese rule, there were about 170,000 people in Taiwan who smoked opium, roughly 6.3% of the total population. That year, opium-related revenue make up 32% of the government's total income. Within 8 years of establishing a government-controlled opium sales system, the Japanese government also included salt, camphor, and tobacco in their monopolies. This not only helped increase the revenue, but also allowed them to better control the opium smoking population. However, revenues from salt, camphor, and tobacco was not as significant as the financial contributions from opium. Gradually, through Japan's progressive policies, the number of opium smokers in Taiwan decreased, and Taiwanese people's views on opium use also began to shift. At the same time, local religious beliefs had a noticeable impact on encouraging people to quit opium. Through campaigns that used divine intervention to help people quit smoking, Religious activities played a significant role at the time. By the end of September 1901, around 169,000 people in Taiwan smoked opium, and approximately 37,000 had successfully quit. Among those who quit, about 34,000 did so with the help of religious forces, accounting for over 20% of the opium-using population, and about 90% of those who managed to quit. However, as the success rate of anti-smoking campaigns grew, the government's monopoly tax revenue began to decline. In response to the decrease in opium revenue, the government started cracking down on those religious anti-smoking activities under the pretext of disrupting public order and superstition. At that time, there was a strong desire among Taiwanese people to quit opium, but due to the substantial financial benefit from opium monopoly, the Japanese government took a passive stance on anti-opium efforts. Influenced by school education, young intellectuals in Taiwan became aware of the dangers of opium and began writing articles exposing its harmful effects and criticizing colonial government policies. Through those intellectuals' efforts, petitions from the public demanded that the colonial government abolish opium use. In 1909, as global interest in the opium issue rose, the International Opium Conference was held in Shanghai with 12 countries in attendance, including the United States, China, Japan, and United Kingdom. The conference supported and pledged assistance for China's anti-opium plan and movement. But the Japanese government didn't respond with any notable proactive policies. Later, intellectuals sent a telegram in English to the League of Nations headquarters, accusing the Japanese government of continued opium sales in Taiwan for revenue purposes, thereby violating international opium restrictions. This accusation drew the League of Nations' attention, leading them to send investigators to Taiwan to conduct on-site inspections. At that time, Dr. Du Congming 博士 was sharing Taiwan's gradual opium ban with the world and released a report on how drug treatments could help opium addicts quit. The report got international attention and even caught the eye of the Japanese officials. Faced with the pressure from the League of Nations, and Japanese government decided to adopt treatment measures and, for the first time, offered medical assistance to help opium-addicted Taiwanese quit. Finally, in September 1944, the Japanese colonial government stopped producing opium paste, and the following year, they abolished government-controlled opium stores. In October 1945, the nationalist government took over Taiwan. And a year later, Dr. Du successfully helped Taiwan's last opium addict kick the habit, finally ending Taiwan's long-standing opium issue. So, hearing this, I believe everyone now knows how the opium issue was finally resolved. Was it the Japanese colonial government's ban that made the difference? Or was it a result of international assistance? In fact, starting from Lin Zexu's initial efforts to ban opium 21 years before, coupled with the educational efforts during Japanese colonial rule, the Chinese people gradually recognized the opium's addictive nature and realized it was a poison. In 1928, Dr. Du began researching treatments for opium addiction and dedicated himself to helping addicts quit. ultimately ending Taiwan's 300-year-long opium addiction problem. The opium issue persisted for centuries in histories of China and Taiwan, deeply harming the people of these lands. Often, unbreakable old mindsets, incorrect medical information, or distorted facts can lead a region or even a nation's people down a path to ruin. Although some Japanese colonial policies in Taiwan were controversial, the educational policies had a significant impact on the people. It was this educational system that enabled intellectuals to step onto the international stage, speak up for their country, and seek international support. Even though I definitely don't want Taiwan to become a colony of any other country, when we look back at history, we can see that Taiwan made a lot of progress in education and health. During the 50 years it was under Japanese rule. You can see the changes from the records left by scholars at the time. The Japanese government used education to change how people in Taiwan saw opium. Of course, just knowing about something doesn't mean anyone can quit right away. But when a country's education improves and people start thinking more scientifically, society as a whole can start to make better choices and live healthier, higher quality lives. Right now, we face some similar challenges, like e-cigarettes and social media addiction. There's a lot we can learn from history when it comes to these issues. Just like the Japanese government helped people understand the importance of health and which bad habits to avoid. We can do the same today. If we start teaching kids early about the dangers of e-cigarettes and social media addiction, for example, and help them understand how these things harm their health, it will not just help individuals, but it can make a positive difference for society and the whole nation. So what do you think? How can we help people better understand the harm of addictions like e-cigarettes or social media to both our physical and mental health? I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to write or leave a message. In this series about the opium wars, I've spent 3 episodes talking about why people in China use the opium and how the government's attitude affected this trying to quit. I hope this helps you understand this part of history a bit better. If you have any thoughts or comments, I would love to hear from you. That's it for today's episode. Thanks for being with me. Now it's our Taiwanese time. The first vocabulary, 替帮. 替帮. It is an iron plate, and we use this in metaphor to describe a tricky problem or a person who is difficult to deal with. 替帮. 替帮. So if you want to say this time he encountered a challenging or he is now faced a tricky problem, you can say 这摆他去踢到铁棒. 这摆 this time, 他去踢到铁棒, he took the iron plate. And as we mentioned that back then, there are 3 customs that Taiwanese are considered part of their traditional culture. They were men wearing braids, opium smoking, and foot binding for women. Braid here, that is 头鬃尾. 头鬃尾. Then foot binding, that is 白卡. 白卡. And if any Taiwanese person sell opium to Japanese citizens, that will face the death penalty. Here, the death penalty is 死刑. 西行. So let's review today's vocabulary. 鐵枋這擺伊去踢著鐵枋頭鬃尾白卡西行. So that wraps up what I wanted to share today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform. And feel free to share this podcast with your friends. It really helps more people discover this podcast. If you would love to support my work, you can buy me a cup of coffee. Every bit helps keep this podcast going and allows me to keep creating helpful language learning resources. To enrich your learning experience, I also create a study guide in both Chinese and Taiwanese. You will get a full transcript in Chinese with pinyin and Taiwanese with both romanization and local phonetic symbols. The study guide also includes a key vocabulary, reading comprehension questions with answer keys, and a few bonus questions to help you think deeper about the topic. You can become a member to access these study guides. They are a great way to preview before a new episode drops or review after listening. And don't miss the vocabulary-rich episode, a new series released every 2 weeks on the SoundOn, Spotify, and Ko-fi platforms. Each episode highlights 10 essential vocabulary words based on that week's topic, plus 5 practical everyday sentences to help you use what you've learned with confidence. All the links and details are in the show notes below. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you will join me again next time on Taiwan Language Episode. Until next time, bye-bye!